If you think you're growing coca efficiently in Schedule 1, you're probably wrong. And I don't mean slightly wrong, I mean thousands of dollars a day wrong. Most of the guides out there, they're built on assumptions. Air pots, a little fertilizer, maybe some buzzwords like maximum profit or highly efficient, but almost none of them are tested. And none of them tell the full story. After noticing some of these discrepancies, I decided to run the numbers myself. No theories and no shortcuts, just 24 in-game days, 15 real-world hours, and a whole lot of Botanist micromanagement. What I found flipped everything I thought I knew about coca production. Air pots, moisture pots, additives, soil quality, all of it's way more important than people think. And some of the optimized setups that people swear by, they're barely breaking even. This video is the result of a full-scale experiment. I tested every reasonable combination of pots, additives, and soil across 12 different setups. Some were clear winners, and others were massive failures. But if you want to know what actually works, and what's just Reddit noise, this is the only video you need to watch. Here's the list of the setups that I ran for this test. Setup 1 is going to be our baseline air pot test. In running 8 air pots, prior to actually doing this test, we can see that the Botanist will only work on 6 plants. However, I just went ahead and left those 8 pots all the way in there as a control group. Setup 2 is also 8 air pots, but this time using fertilizer. And again, this is only going to be using 6 of the pots, so you can safely assume that these first 2 setups are what's most commonly seen on YouTube when people are doing coca builds. So we're going to find out if these 2 stack up to the other options here. Setup 3 is going to be 8 moisture pots using all 3 additives. And the reason that I decided not to run a moisture pot setup without the additives is I felt that it's pretty obvious that we need to at least use speed grow or PGR. And if we're going to use either of those, then we might as well use both and use fertilizer to cancel them both out in order to achieve maximum yield on coca, and that's what I'm attempting to prove here with this experiment. So on all of the rest of the setups, I'll be running full additives. Setup 4 is going to be 8 air pots with full additives. This is going to be the control group for the air pots using additives. The rest of our setups are going to be using different combinations of numbers of pots with the additives. And this is going to be so that we can check if we're able to dial in a little bit more consistency and efficiency across our setups by reducing overlap of grown plants and maximizing the uptime that the botanist is completing a useful action. I will say on the graphs you'll notice that setup 5 will be missing, and this is due to a malfunction in the AI during one of the days of the testing. So I reran that setup, and that will be included as setup 9. Setup 6 is going to be 6 air pots with full additives, and setup 7 is going to be 7 air pots with full additives, and this is again to try and dial in on the efficiency and consistency, see if it changes from using 8. Setup 8 is going to be 7 moisture pots with full additives, checking to see if there's any differentiation or an increase in efficiency between 8 or 7 moisture pots. Setup 9 is going to be 5 air pots, which is what I personally have been running in my builds, and I felt that it was pretty efficient, so we're going to go ahead and find out today whether I was right or not. Setup 10 is going to be 8 moisture pots with full additives, and yes, this is a repeat of setup 3. Setup 11 is going to be 6 moisture pots with full additives. And finally, setup 12 is going to be another variation of the 5 air pot setup. But this time, along with the 5 air pots and full additives, I'm going to be swapping to the base soil to see if this has any effect on efficiency or not. Due to the scale of the experiment, I had to run this in 3 waves, 4 setups at a time. Some crush, some crash. So let's find out which is which. But before we hit the charts, do me a favor and comment right now which setup you think is gonna win. I know I was surprised by the results. I think you might be too. Okay, you got your guess in? Let's get into this. Graph 1 is gonna be our total leaf output over 8 days. As I said before, I ran the experiment for 8 days, but beyond this point in the experiment, I'll be referring to the 7-day adjusted time period. And what that means is that all of the data going forward will have the first day removed. And the reason that I'm removing that first day of data is because I consider it to be a wind-up period because coca takes so long to grow. So the first day is going to have a lot of inconsistencies, and we want to have a more consistent averaged result here. But as you can see in this graph, this is the total raw scoreboard over the 8 full days for each setup. And let me know if you were surprised. I know I sure was when I saw setup 3 and 10 were actually the two highest. The reason that I had to do setup 10 was to confirm whether setup 3 was an outlier, and I kind of got slapped in the face because then I just got an even higher result. So I don't know if we should base this a little bit in between those two. That's what I would be likely to say. But I found this to be very interesting because pretty much any guide that you watch on YouTube from any of the big content creators will be telling you to use 6 air pots and fertilizer. But look at where we stand when we're using air pots and fertilizer here. Really, there's no point in even growing coca at all if you're not going to use all 3 additives, no matter which pots you're using. And air pots are totally viable if you want to, as long as you're using the additives. But if you're just using soil or only fertilizer, man, you're losing so much money every day because that's about 150 to 180% increase. So now we're going to move on to graph 2 here, and this is our adjusted total leaf output over the 7 days. As you can see, I removed that first day, but everything in the graph still pretty much stands. Some of the gaps are reduced a little bit. Setup 10 is still sitting pretty here with 1,432 leaves. And I do want to take note that setup 9, the 5 air pots with the high quality soil, didn't do too bad. I was pretty close by eyeballing my guesses early on in playing the game, but now that I've done this experiment, I know I'm going to be reworking everything. Overall, I think that what we can immediately gather from this data is that the moisture pots allowing the botanist to go longer in between watering, and also the fact that those same moisture pots allow for the plants to grow longer overnight. I'm thinking that must have something to do with it. Graph 3 here is going to be our average daily leaf output over the 7-day adjusted period. You can see setup 10 is sitting at the top with 204.6 leaves a day, which is double that of the low ones. Setup 9 is doing decent, 185. Setup 11 is pretty good too, with 182. All of the ones here in the middle of the pack are sitting between 160 and 170, pretty decent. But again, setup 1 and 2 here, without fertilizer and with fertilizer, these are in the low 70s. Obviously with the moisture pot setups, you can easily break 180. But if you're sitting anywhere below 160, by opting not to use all the additives, you're basically just watering weeds for no reason. But that being said, leaves don't pay, bricks do. So graph 4 here is going to cover the average daily cocaine bricks over the 7-day adjusted period. Setup 10 comes in at 5.11, setup 8 sitting at 4.63, setup 11 sitting at 4.56. And as you can see, setups 1 and 2 aren't even making half of what these setups are making. Graph 5 is our total value of our finished product for the 7-day adjusted period, valued at $150 a unit to non-addicted buyers. As you can see, when we look at this in terms of dollars over the week, it's quite easy to understand why these options are so much better. Setup 1 and 2 are sitting at $38,000, and you can easily triple your income by just swapping the pots and adding your additives. Setup 10 is on a really nice $107,000. Setup 8 and 11 aren't too far behind, really close to $100,000. But that's looking at non-addicted customers. So how about we take a look at calculating the actualized profit after everything has been finished and made, and selling at a cost of $240 per baggie of Coke to your addicted customers. And that's what this graph is here. Total profit over the 7-day adjusted period. This section of total profit accounts for everything. The cost of seeds, additives, soil, gasoline. So you can see that late in the game, when you have all of your customers addicted, with setup 10, you'd be making a whopping $161,000 a week. And with setup 8, $146,000 a week. Setup 11 isn't too far behind either. And if you want to quantify that in terms of percentages, that means that the best moisture pot setup perform 20% better than the best performing air pot setup. And the best moisture preserving pot setup compared to the popular setups that you'll see on YouTube, being just running with fertilizer or nothing at all, that's a 175% increase. Of course, if you do want to run the air pots and use all the additives on your setup that you already have, then you'll be increasing your efficiency by almost 130% even if you stick to the air pots and don't switch to moisture preserving pots. This is a big difference, guys. That's a 6-figure gap if you stick with these outdated guides telling you to use fertilizer and no other additives. This is going to bring us to our final graph here, average daily profit. This way you guys can see exactly what you'll be making each day with these different setups. I figured this would help you make up your mind to see if you wanted to completely rebuild everything and reassign all those moisture pots, or if you were fine with just adding additives into your air pot build. Because here you can see that setup 10 is raking in a big $23,000 a day, as well as the other moisture pot setups being above 20,000. The best air pot setup, once you've added all of your additives, will be making you $19,000 a day, which ends up being only about $4,000 less than the best moisture pot setup. But if you're still using these regular setups with just soil or only fertilizer, then you're only making $8,500 per day, and that's way less than half. Basically what I'm saying is, if you're not clearing like 18,000 a day, you're kind of just bleeding money. 15 hours, 24 in-game days, and thousands of leaves later, here's the truth. Moisture pots with full additives is going to build you an empire way faster than the Romans could. Bottom line is, when you're growing with coca, you have to use all of the additives, otherwise you're just leaving money on the table. No matter which setup you use, even if it's air pots or moisture pots, you're going to get a much better result using every additive on it. I know which one I'm going to swap all my builds to, but even if you decide to do a smaller one, it's still going to be making a lot more money every day. But hey guys, if this video saved you some time, hit the like button for me, drop a comment with your setup, let me know what you thought of the video. If this changed your builds, I'd love to hear about it, and if you have any suggestions for me in the future, I'll gladly take a look at them. I read every single comment and I try to reply as fast as I can. Next up, I think it's time to break the drying rack meta, but what do you guys think? Thanks for watching. Peace.